Hello, I'm Dr. Kent Moores. I'm here today to brief you on what's really going on in Iraq, what it means to Americans, the price of oil, and more importantly, to your investments in the coming weeks. For the last 40 years, I have traveled the globe from Syria to Uganda. I've been to more than 70 countries, advising governments, major oil companies, and working on regular assignments for the United States intelligence and diplomatic communities. I've seen firsthand how political events can impact the markets, creating huge risks and at times huge opportunities. But of all the crisis situations I've monitored over the years, from events in Vietnam through the Cold War to the crisis in Ukraine, the current situation in Iraq is by far the most critical I've seen. That's why I'm speaking with you today. Now, the first thing you need to know about the situation in Iraq is that it is completely different than any previous war in the country. This new conflict is not about removing a political party or dictator. It's not about natural resources or fighting America. For the Sunnis and Shiites, this is primarily a religious war. Sunni militants, spearheaded by the al-Qaeda splinter group, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, are now waging a war against Iraq's Shiite majority. The goal of the group is very simple: to drive Islam back into the medieval age governed by strict Sharia law. But what you're not hearing in the media is the extreme eventuality of this war. Meaning one thing is absolutely certain: a central government will never take power in Iraq again. As Iraq's former envoy to the U.S. admits, we are seeing the state of Iraq disintegrate before our eyes. But what I'm here to explain to you today is that this war will not remain isolated in Iraq. Soon, a Shiite-Sunni civil war may well erupt and spread across the region like wildfire. It's already begun. Over the past 3 years, the ongoing war between Syria's Sunni majority and the Shiite-led government has resulted in 150,000 deaths and the displacement of 6.5 million people. In Bahrain, conflicts between the Shia majority and the mainly Sunni ruling class have become regular occurrences. And violent outbreaks between these two groups are on the rise in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkey, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Malaysia, and Tunisia. It's only a matter of time before the jihad spring arrives and engulfs the region. Iran, the Shiite powerhouse of the Middle East, has already sent 2,000 of its soldiers into Iraq to bolster the Shiite government against the IS militants. Saudi Arabia has now amassed 30,000 troops on the border of Iraq. Like I said, this is not a political war. This is an Islamic religious war, specifically the beginning of a Sunni-Shiite war that will soon impact hundreds of millions of people in dozens of countries across the region. It could redraw borders, shift power from one group to another, and create an entirely new divided Middle East, in which entire countries will be overtaken by radicals. But whether you realize it or not, you are now being affected by this conflict. That brings me to point number 2. Right now, the global demand for oil is growing at a faster rate than anyone could have ever imagined. A decade ago, global oil demand was 78 million barrels a day. Today, that number has grown to 92.7 million barrels per day, and this trend will not subside anytime soon. According to the EIA, global oil demand will rise to nearly 100 million barrels per day by 2018. But right now, 8 of the 12 OPEC member nations are in a production decline. In a recent article from the Wall Street Journal, the countries of Algeria, Angola, Ecuador, Iran, Libya, Nigeria, Qatar, and Venezuela were producing just over 14.5 million barrels per day in 2005. That number has since dropped to 11.2 million barrels a day. The article further states that these countries are now losing nearly 500,000 barrels per day of production per year. Of the other 4 OPEC nations not in decline, only Iraq has managed to increase its production from 1.75 million barrels per day in 2005 to 3.25 million barrels per day currently. This increase in Iraqi production has kept oil prices within $100 to $110 per barrel over the past couple of years. But now that religious conflict has broken out in Iraq, this is all about to change. Right now, Iraq accounts for 4% of the world's global oil production. That may not seem like a big percentage, but a complete loss of Iraqi production would spike the world oil price up to at least $200 per barrel in a heartbeat. That's an 80% increase over today's prices. In fact, if even just a third of Iraq's oil production went offline, former military leaders and energy experts warn that crude oil prices will go up an additional $40 per barrel. But as the conflict spreads throughout the region, nearly every oil-producing nation will continue to cut its supply. In Libya, home to Africa's largest reserves, production has already fallen to 220,000 barrels per day, more than 80% since militias seized control of the country's biggest ports last summer. Sanctions aimed at punishing Iran for its nuclear weapons program have crippled oil exports by 50%, from 2.5 million barrels a day before sanctions to 1.3 million barrels a day today. And in Nigeria, where violence from Islamic militant groups has caused the worst oil crisis in 5 years, output has fallen by 300,000 barrels a day. All of this spells one thing: a global oil crisis in which the supply of oil will be far below future demand. As you can see in this chart, the EIA predicts that there will be a shortage of roughly 50 million barrels per day by 2025. Unfortunately, most Americans have no idea how this is going to affect their lives. But that is what I'm going to explain in point number 3. Look at this chart. This is probably the most important chart you'll ever see. It depicts the price of oil between 1970 and 2008. As you can see, whenever a conflict occurs in an oil-producing country, oil prices rise. It's one of the most predictable patterns in the markets. My point is, oil prices are not a fundamental thing like everyone on TV wants you to believe. This is the third point of this presentation. It is merely the fear of disrupted supply that causes the risk premium on oil to rise. In a crisis situation, oil traders set their prices based on the next most expensive barrel of oil in the future. This is the real cause of high oil prices. Not large oil producers, not gas stations, but the futures markets. The price of oil will continue to rise in the long run, simply out of fear and uncertainty. It's a truth few people know about, but one that will help you immensely in the near future. Now, one question I've been asked a lot in the last month is there a way to benefit from the certainty of spiking oil prices and higher demand? And the answer is absolutely yes. You see, right now, there is a group of companies about to benefit from this event in a very big and unique way. These companies have oil operations in trouble-free zones. For them, higher oil prices means more revenue, and more revenue means a step up in drilling. Companies like EOG Resources, for example, which operates in Texas, increased their revenues last quarter by 25% over the previous year. The stock is now up 75%. Across the U.S., the number of oil rigs in use reached 1,545, the highest level since record-keeping began in 1987. Total dollars invested are expected to reach record levels, with oil and gas companies pouring $165 billion into exploration and production this year alone. In other words, trouble in the Middle East is very profitable for companies currently drilling in stable regions, where the potential for violent outbreaks is virtually non-existent. As oil prices rise, these companies can pull out the same amount of oil for the same low cost and sell that oil at a much higher price, significantly boosting profits. Major oil producers that operate in stable areas of the world, such as America and Canada, will see their earnings increase at very rapid rates. Anadarko, a Texas company that operates wells in the Rocky Mountains area, the southern U.S., the Appalachian Basin, and Alaska, is up almost 40% so far this year. Chevron and ExxonMobil, whose primary operations are in the U.S. Gulf of Mexico, Canada, Europe, Asia, and Australia, are now trading at record high levels. This is the global game changer. And as the U.S. becomes increasingly energy independent, OPEC's command over the world will weaken. Between 2010 and 2013, America's daily output grew from 1.6 to 10.4 million barrels, according to the EIA. That's a 550% increase in production over 3 years. OPEC's oil shipments, however, fell by 1.2 million barrels during this same time. With the U.S. expecting to increase its production by another 1.5 million barrels per day by 2017, OPEC's dominance in the world will continue to weaken. Again, unlike Iraq, Venezuela, Russia, or any other oil producers, we are one of the only major oil-producing nations on Earth that are not stricken by sectarian violence. This will allow U.S. companies to generate higher revenues than everyone else, which in turn will allow them to drill for more oil, expand their volume, and increase the size of their reserves. This is what I call a convergence event, that's spawning a prime moment in time for you to make some extraordinary gains. As an American, you'll want to be a part of this. The world's traditional oil supply is shrinking. Global demand is rising faster than expected, and because of events now happening in the Middle East, volatility is higher than ever. The world is now turning its eyes toward America, the one major oil-producing country that has no political instability or sectarian violence. The one country on earth whose oil is safe, secure, and proven. In my 40-year career, I've never seen a point in time in which U.S. oil businesses were in a better position to profit from the world's growing thirst for oil. This is the most exciting time to be alive as an American. It would be a shame if you don't benefit from it. I'm Dr. Kent Morse. Thank you for following this briefing today. I hope you learned something valuable.
Hi, I'm John Wilkinson, Special Project Editor for Monday Morning. Thank you for joining this special briefing with Dr. Kent Morse today. Over the past month, we've been receiving hundreds of phone calls and emails for Dr. Morse, asking for his advice on the current situation in Iraq and what it means to investors. Now, he's encapsulated his findings and recommendations in this report. It's called The Convergence Event: How to Play the Global Oil Crisis. I'm convinced that no other person in the world has the expertise that Dr. Morse has when it comes to investing in oil energy. And he's packed over 40 years of experience into this one report. It's something every serious investor needs to have. Global uncertainty is giving rise to some extraordinary opportunities. And as Kent touched upon earlier, it's something that's happened many times before. In 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, the nominal price of crude quadrupled over a 2-year period. And in the late 1970s, crises in Iran and Iraq led to another round of price increases when 2.5 million barrels of oil were taken out of production. And when Iraq invaded Kuwait in August 1990, oil supplies from both countries were disrupted. The price of oil more than doubled in 4 months. You see the pattern? The difference today is that this conflict will not be isolated to just Iraq. And Dr. Morse believes this is not a short-term event, but something likely to continue for years to come as this conflict spreads across the Middle East and runs unabated. Inside this critical report, Kent details 3 companies in America that he believes will profit in a huge way from having safe oil. One of these companies is a huge growth story in the industry. It's utilizing a revolutionary technology to boost production rates in one of the hottest oil basins in America. Another company you'll learn about in this report is currently operating in a basin so large that if it were a country, its production would rank 8th in the world and surpass Saudi Arabia. Since 2009, this company has grown its revenue by 300% each year on average. And since 2010, they've increased their annual production levels by 145% on average. big name investors are now loading up. And the final company you'll learn about in this report has such large reserves that it expects to grow its oil production by 54% this year alone. Now, if you divide the $6.9 billion in reserve this company has by the number of outstanding shares, the stock should be trading at 230% above its current stock price. Now, I'd like to send you this critical report at no charge just for giving Dr. Moore's research advisory service a try. It's called Energy Advantage, and it's by far the most amazing research letter ever published. Dr. Moore's list of winners is breathtaking. Now here's a chart of just a few of them ranging from 138% to 543%. And this only gives you a very small sample of the kind of gains Dr. Moore's regularly produces. Currently, all but 3 of the 47 open plays in Dr. Moore's portfolio are in the black. Now that's a 94% win rate. And get this, the average, yes, the average return is over 50%. In the past month, Dr. Moore's has produced 8 double and triple digit winners, including a 279, 108, and 106% gain. And of course, people are raving about Dr. Moore's research. Bob Leonard of Tulsa, Oklahoma writes, "Wow, you've given me a great profit and I'm most appreciative. In a bit less than 6 months, I've gained 247%. I'm so excited to have made a whopping 300% thanks to you. I appreciate the obvious care you take to keep us informed at all times," said Wendy Rendell-Berg. And take a look at this note Ned Mortensen sent us a few weeks ago. To sum it up, I've got 16 of Dr. Kent's recommendations. I'll have to keep Dr. Kent to myself like every other pot of gold I find. Again, when you become a member of Dr. Moore's Energy Advantage, you'll get immediate access to his new report, The Convergence Event, How to Play the Global Oil Crisis. You'll also get the monthly issue. On the 3rd Friday of each month, Dr. Moore's will share his findings with you over a secure network. Inside each issue, you'll get detailed descriptions of opportunities most people know nothing about. Also, free weekly reports. Every week, Dr. Moore's will send you updates on big investment targets. Industry briefings. Over the past year, Dr. Moore's has been to over 20 countries. These trips exposed him to the kinds of deals that can change your life. You'll get details on every one of those. Vital updates. The minute Dr. Moore's learns of any news that can affect your position on any opportunities, you'll be immediately notified via email. And finally, private 24/7 access. Once you become a member of Energy Advantage, you'll receive a private login information to Dr. Moore's secure website. Here, you can view and read all of his monthly briefings and updates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Please give Dr. Kent Moore's Energy Advantage a try. The time has never, ever been better to take advantage of this unique convergence event, and no one else on earth can show you how and when to profit from this opportunity the same way Dr. Moore's can. And because this is so unique, we have a special price reserved as part of our mission to help as many people as possible make a ton of money. In fact, when you see it, you'll probably just fall over in disbelief. An amazing 80% off. And the opportunities are nothing short of breathtaking. Heck, one subscriber recently claimed that he's made over $1 million following Dr. Moore's. No doubt that's exceptional. But ask yourself, could you be the next one? Just click on the button below this video. You get all the details and you'll be able to decide if this trial is right for you. It costs nothing to take a look. And like I said, the price is extremely low, little more than maybe a bottle of wine you might enjoy. It's really a small price to pay for having the chance to live a secure, worry-free life that creates new opportunities most thought they'd never have. Click on the button below. Please do it now. Don't wait another moment. Many folks will regret not taking this one simple action today. And remember, the report is absolutely free with your trial subscription. For Dr. Kent Moore's and myself, I want to thank you for spending time with us. I hope this presentation has offered something new and vital, and that you take advantage of this unique offer.